the answers, no what answers I could find you, I could find.
From the Sporting News Studios, this is the Fantasy Football Show with your host, Matt Litevsky.
I got all the answers, all the answers I could find you, I could find all the answers if you let me get it close and study you.
Time for the most exciting fantasy draft preview podcast of the preseason. Defense slash special teams.
It's going to be big.
It is going to be big. I am Matt Litevsky, Sporting News Fantasy Senior Editor, here with Fantasy Football Commissioner.
That's where we're going?
Eric Ferreira.
That's a big title.
DAZN employee. And yes, you do run multiple fantasy leagues?
No, just one.
Just one.
Just one.
But you do the settings and...
I do the setting. It's a dynasty league, so I had to do some off-site stuff too.
That's a lot of power.
Yeah, well, it's a lot of spreadsheeting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's kind of lame.
It's not just about collecting money. It's about spreadsheeting.
Right. Yeah. You gotta. That's not a. Why are you making that a verb?
That's the thing. It's like
it's not a verb.
Scrapbooking.
Scrapbooking.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Spreadsheeting.
Spreadsheeting.
I can see that actually. So yeah. So you are a commissioner.
And the only thing you have to do to qualify to be a commissioner is sign up a league.
Yeah, that's true.
But
it's the one thing no one wants to do. You collect the money. You send out the emails.
I'm a good commissioner, though.
Good Lord, yeah.
Like, I get the money from people. I pay people right away.
Got to.
I'm good at the spreadsheets.
Got to. Well, now with Venmo, there's no reason not to be able to pay people.
I still got a couple old schoolers in my league, though, like to go cash.
Yeah, sometimes you got tax purposes. I totally
You're
get
one
it.
of those people.
Am I?
You're new to the Venmo game.
Well, yeah, and I wouldn't be on it if I wasn't a fantasy commissioner myself.
Yourself, that's right.
But I understand.
A couple of commissioners in here talking football.
Just two commissions, man. People know that what we're about to say about fantasy defense / special teams is very important.
It carries weight.
When you're commissioners like we are, we have the commissioners meeting.
I can make those settings anything I want.
Every offseason, we get a hotel room here and have a commissioners meeting.
I did a new thing this year. I didn't even ask my guys for like a draft date.
Nope, you just said it.
I was like, you guys haven't written back to me in a while, so it's Tuesday night before the season. We've done it pretty much every time, every year. So that's it. Let me know if you have any problems.
I'm just going to start suspending people too this year.
Do it.
Unilaterally.
I was like, let me know if you have any problems.
Yeah.
So if you don't write back, you're complicit now.
It's cool to be a fantasy commissioner like us. But anyway, we are going to go through. We've done position previews for every other position. If people are listening to this one, it's because they really want a fantasy football fix,
right?
And they're bored.
They might really like us.
Yeah.
Coming off that hot baseball season.
Yeah, but that's not.
No, it's not
that.
My mom listened a couple times.
That's cool. So, but
my mom might listen. What if my mom sees a fantasy football podcast, thinks I'm on it?
Yeah.
But it's really the one.
And then she's like, "Oh, what's this? Who's this
other
intern guy?
Yeah.
Talking
She'll
with
probably call and ask me if I'm okay.
Cool guy Matt. Yeah, that's probably what happens. But the funny thing about defense is it is the position that going into the season most people are the most sort of, in the weeds on. They kind of don't know, hey, who switched teams, what's a different outlook, and a lot of times people wind up just drafting on reputation. I've taken the Ravens 5 years in a row. I'm just going to take them again.
To be fair, just to go behind the curtain a little bit.
Okay, pull it back.
Aren't the defense rankings on the site some of the most highly trafficked?
Oh, week to week, for sure.
Fantasy pages.
In season, it's the biggest rankings.
So people are clearly looking for the information.
Right, and preseason, it's very big too. I think running back might edge it out, but it's very close. But again, it's because people running back you have in your mind, oh, this guy's good, this guy isn't. Defense, if the average person, you say, hey, what's the outlook for the Texans defense this year?
Oh, we'll get to that later.
We'll get to that, but they might
tease.
They might be like, well, they still have J.J. Watt, right? And so you need to look it up. You need to listen, and we're here to help. So we'll run down the categories like we've done for every position, where we look at our top tier, we look at some of our favorites from the second tier, least favorites, our favorite sleepers, deep sleepers. We'll make a bold prediction at the end that are semi-bold.
That I'm sure we'll get back to at the end of the season. And
we always follow up.
Definitely follow up.
We're still waiting. You mentioned the baseball one. We're still waiting on whether Mike Fiers is going to get that win in that suspended game.
Edge of my seat.
So there's a lot of people who just Or like baseball. Just tuned
Why
out.
people play fantasy baseball?
But the defense is a little different than the other positions, I think, anyway, when you just start talking about sleepers and things like that. It all kind of meshes together into one. So this one might not be quite as split up the categories, but we'll get into it. But the way we want to start it is by looking at a general draft strategy for the position. As you head into your draft, how do you want to attack it? And I was telling you before we started recording, I have become very much a snob about this. I am 100% convinced I am right. Everything else, I say, there's no right or wrong way in fantasy. Just get a player who does well. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. You can do whatever you want. I don't really care. Defense, though, I'm like, if you are not strictly playing matchups from week one, just playing matchups, you're doing it wrong. You've wasted opportunity cost and draft capital trying to get a good defense in round 10. I think it's dumb. I look down on you. I feel superior. I get up on Mount Pius.
And I was ready to go against you a little bit. And you said...
Un poco.
You said, save for the air.
I did. I actually, unironically, used the phrase "save it for air."
Save it for air.
And I punched myself.
You're such a.
I'm becoming a pro.
Like,
I'm like Rick Dees.
Yeah, you're quite the DJ in that.
No one gets that reference.
I get it.
Yeah.
So let me offer a couple of
alternatives.
Alternatives.
Sure.
So, or let me just tell you problems.
We got time to kill.
Problems with your strategy.
There aren't any.
Waiver or transaction budgets.
Sure. Right. The old fab.
All right. You might not want to burn that every week on it.
In fab leagues, it is a little different.
Okay, let's say. All right. So I already got him down from that one.
But I don't play it though, so I don't care.
That one. Number two, just straight up. How about just straight up waivers leagues with no free agency? Mm-hmm. Or just waivers in general. If you had 12 people in your league with this same philosophy, every week would be like fighting for defenses.
Yeah. Hunger Games.
You like this in your leagues most likely because only 2 or 3 people are doing it.
Right. Well, yeah, because
which is fine. I've done it before. I've streamed defenses before.
Oh, it's the best.
I like, if I'm being lazy, if it's a lazy year, which this year clearly is not going to be lazy because I'm in charge of looking at the defense rankings.
In July.
I'd want an okay defense that I would feel safe about so that I could at least be lazy, set it and forget it, and stream when I needed to.
So my comeback to that is there's no such thing. There's no such thing.
And I tend to agree.
Right.
But there are defenses that make you feel safe.
That make you feel, this is why I keep saying it's all about the draft grade for defense. You're like, oh cool, not you specifically, but people are like, yeah, I got a good defense, and it makes your draft grade that you get look better than someone like me who's like, the New York Giants suck, but have an awesome week 2 through 4 schedule, so I'm going to draft the Giants. My draft grade's going to suffer because of that.
How far ahead are you working here? You going week to week?
Yeah. Weeks, like honest to God, in my draft,
it just gets exhausting.
I want to find a defense with good first 2 weeks.
Right, that's fine. In the draft,
all I care about.
A million times in a draft, I've looked for a week or 2.
Right.
But the problem is you get in the season and it's like exhausting.
No, here's what it is. In season, it's really not that bad, but there is a problem. This is the one flaw in my strategy, which is still the correct one, is you usually have to carry 2 defenses.
Yep.
And
that's
especially early in the year, that sucks. And it is an opportunity cost. But let's be honest, most people, like you, that roster spot's going to be on someone dumb anyway.
What are you talking about? We're the kind of people that take awesome lotto tickets.
I know, but they're lotto tickets, but I'm saying they don't work out.
Right.
Like people like you, your lotto tickets don't work.
But you could argue.
Like you specifically.
Right. Yeah. You could argue, it's funny, we've had this conversation too. So if you draft a lotto ticket and he's on your team.
You got to keep him.
It's brutal to drop him to grab that second team. But if you just draft 2 defenses.
Well, we were talking about this. You weren't here. It was with fantasy intern Billy Hine.
Oh, it was your new podcast partner?
I was cheating on you with him for the tight end preview.
Yeah.
And I was talking about Gronk, drafting and stashing Gronk.
Right.
Because he's coming back.
Right.
And I was like, if you draft him and stash him, though, you can't drop him.
No, like you're holding him for a long time.
That defeats the purpose.
Right. Because you either have to stay silent and hope the guy is hidden deep down the waiver wire and you can grab him when you need him.
Every once in a while you walk around going, man, it's crazy how Gronk's retired.
Once you draft that third string back from the Rams and you put his name out there for half your league
you don't want people to see that name?
No.
People are like, wait a minute.
And then it's also that, that it plays tricks on you too, because you're like, if I drop him, I'm sure he's going to start next week.
Yep.
I'm sure someone's going to get hurt in practice the day I drop him.
Right. So that's like, hey, save yourself the drama. Just have a second defense.
Yeah.
That's what.
I mean, can we talk a little more so obviously then, general strategy is Matchups. So I jotted down some teams. I know we talked about this yesterday.
Right.
So what opponents are you playing off this year?
Well, this is the thing, right? Where right now we talk about, hey, I just said, hey, there's no sure thing. There's no sure thing with matchups.
Right.
We can sit here in July and think this team sucks,
Right.
and then 4 weeks into the year, it's like, oh crap, and then injuries happen, it changes the whole equation.
Right.
But like as we sit here right now,
Right.
teams where I look at and think this will be at least a semi-favorable matchup for defenses, I basically base that on quarterback and offensive line to some degree, although there's, offensive lines have switched or have changed some personnel. But I'm like, okay, Jameis Winston, he's a turnover machine.
Oh, I hate that you don't go in division order. Really
What do you
bothers
mean?
me. Because you're already in the NFC South. When you look at
I haven't gone in any order. I've said one name.
When you look at like a team's list.
Oh,
I thought we
God.
were doing teams right now.
Yeah, I'm naming teams.
Okay, but you start in the NFC South. If I look at standings
What if
or
that's
a
where I
team
start?
page, my eyes go to the AFC East.
Okay. Well, yeah, because you're a
No,
Patriots
because they
homer.
put them at the top of the list every time.
The list that I look at have the NFC South on top. Okay.
All right.
Those are my lists.
Cool. Let's just jump around and make it even more confusing for
We're
people.
going to jump. Well, you have a list. You can check guys off as I
Yeah,
name
well,
them.
now look at Tampa is like the second to last
Okay,
team
let me
on
go.
my list.
AFC East. Guess
Yeah.
what? Every team but the Pats.
Got 'em.
As it's been for the last 18 years, the only reason Brady and Belichick have done anything is because of the horrible schedule they play every year.
Got it.
All right. But no, all three of those teams, right? Even though I like Josh Allen sort of in general, I do think he turns it over. We know, the Dolphins are going to be.
That's my number one team on the list, right? Is
That's-
that your number one team?
Yes, that is the must stream.
Right. You know Fitzmagic is
Horrible line.
is throwing picks. You know Rosen's
Fitzmagic or
throwing
Rosen.
Yeah.
Not a lot of skill players. They're the team. And then the Jets too. Darnold. He could kind of be a breakout, but he's known for throwing picks. He's been known for that going back.
picks.
Obviously,
That's how I always know him.
right. Le'Veon Bell. Yeah, we'll call him old Sammy Picks Darnold. We call him.
Is that what we call him?
That's what I call them. So all three of those teams. So basically, draft the Pats, right? They get five that matter.
We'll talk about them later.
5 that matter.
Well, no, actually, yeah, because one they got in week 17. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm going to try to go through your stupid way.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to go to AFC North now, right?
I'm an AFC South first guy, but it could go either way.
All right.
Actually, I think it's because I didn't. You know what? I wasn't too interested in anyone in the AFC North.
Yeah,
Maybe
because,
the Bengals.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe the Bengals, the other three teams. Because the Ravens, like Lamar Jackson turns it over, like with fumbles.
Right.
And will take some sacks, but they don't throw enough to
Right.
have a lot of. But I actually think they're quietly a pretty good matchup
Yeah.
because of the fumbles.
I wouldn't be
and some other
scared because they're not.
No.
They're not going to overscore. Probably
Right.
they're going to hold the ball.
Yeah.
I think you start against Cincinnati. I don't necessarily
Yeah,
think
you do
look
for sure.
You look for someone against Cincinnati, but you're
might.
fine with it.
Yeah, for sure. In Pittsburgh, you're a little scared of. Cleveland, you're probably a little scared
Yeah.
of. All right, down to the South. I don't necessarily think Nick Foles is bad and the Jaguars are bad, but you're definitely not scared of them.
No, sure.
Definitely not scared of them.
For sure.
Same with the Titans,
Yeah, I'm
although
not
the
scared of
Titans
either.
run so much, they don't give a lot of opportunities for defenses.
Yeah, but you're not scared of them.
You're definitely not scared of them. The Colts, now that they can block, are a bad matchup.
Well, yeah, they have a pretty high octane offense.
But they could always never block,
Yeah.
so they were whatever. And then
And the dome too. We like those cold defenses,
love
don't we?
them, love them. And then Houston can't block. Watson takes a lot of sacks. They score points.
Yeah.
So I'm not scared of Houston, but at the same time, I'm not too excited about it. And then out west, Broncos, they're right up. They're a top 3 stream defense against Broncos. And then I'm not scared of the Raiders, although they'll be decent.
Right, they
And
can
then
go either way.
I'm full on scared of the Chargers and Chiefs.
Right, sure.
All right, so now we'll go NFC
Good.
East.
Okay.
Redskins,
You're
I
learning.
think, are a top 5 stream against team.
Giants too.
Oh yeah, Giants.
We'll just put about 8 teams in our top 5 against.
the East, man.
Yeah. The East.
Yeah.
Well, we'll
And then-
talk a
and
little
then
bit
the
more about that
Cowboys-
later too.
The Cowboys have a little bit of, I don't know if you're scared of them, but they run a lot. They don't make a ton of mistakes. They have a good line. I don't want to play defenses against
I'm
the
not,
Cowboys. And then the Eagles,
not.
kind of the same thing, but if Wentz gets hurt, they could be a good team to stream against. We'll go to the
North.
NFC North. I don't like streaming against playing against any of those teams. I'm not particularly scared of the Lions.
Yeah, they'll throw some picks.
I'm
for
really not
sure.
scared of any team.
But they'll all put up points
Right.
to a degree.
All those teams, even the Packers, who obviously used to be a scary team, I'm not that scared of anymore.
But you're not looking for when you see those
No.
4 teams, they're not like this is a good week.
No.
Maybe Detroit, but
Yeah, maybe, but yeah. So in the South, I love Tampa.
Oh, now we get to Tampa.
Finally.
Cool.
Yeah. Love Tampa.
You got some Jameis Winston facts or
Stats. Well, they threw the most picks in the NFL last year between their two
That's a couple of
ass bag quarterbacks.
definitely a couple of.
They were top 9 in sacks allowed.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're new offense. Maybe that changes things a little. But Jameis Winston, this is just a dude who like throws the ball over his head backwards.
No running game.
No running game. Bad O-line. The other 3 teams, I'm not scared of the Panthers, but I'm not looking to play. And then the other
Definitely
2, I want nothing to do with. And then out west, I
think it's Arizona or it could be none.
It's Arizona or none. And because he's a rookie, because the O-line's bad, I'm all in on streaming against Arizona. Right. But that's one of those that could change in a hurry.
Right, for sure.
San Francisco, pretty good with Jimmy G back, I think, are going to be solid. We know the Seahawks give up sacks, but we know they're solid, and obviously the Rams are great. So that's how we break that down.
Great. We did not expect to do that maybe, but we just did.
Yeah, we just did. Tell you what. 15 minutes in before we start talking about a specific defense.
That's fine.
That's a recipe for people going, skip.
Nah.
Well, when we mentioned Mike Fires, it was...
They were already out.
They were already out then. So let's get to some specific defenses. Okay. Because this is what people want to hear, even though waste of time. The top tier. As we have determined the top tier. Sporting News, not you.
Yeah, I had nothing to do with it. I was too busy getting my league settings straight.
That's right. Well, the commissioner job never stops.
It never stops.
365. Chicago Bears, everyone's consensus number 1. There's an argument to be made. They're in a tier by themselves, right?
Sure.
Almost everyone else would say the Rams are really the only other team that can compete with them. We believe the Chargers are right there too. Healthy Joey Bosa. And some of their they got playmakers, they drafted some guys. I think they're going to be good. So those are our 3 tier 1 teams. So let's break it down. The Bears last year, by far the best fantasy defense. They bring back all the key guys, except for one very key guy, which is Vic Fangio, the defensive coordinator, who's now in Denver. How much does that matter? Tough to say, but we know talent is there in terms of the players. But this time last year, fantasy analysts were sitting there. Now, you were busy. You were a commissioner, so you were busy. But other fantasy analysts were sitting there, and we were saying all these exact same things about the Jaguars. Mm-hmm. This is the no doubt number 1, and they were not very good last year.
Right.
Could that be the Bears this year?
It could be.
Thanks.
Well, no, based on that alone, it could be.
Well, no, the biggest thing going here is touchdowns are fluky. You cannot count on them. Fumble recoveries are very fluky. Turnovers in general, but especially fumble recoveries.
I'd like to look at forced fumbles more than fumble
And the
recoveries.
Bears had 17 forced fumbles. That's great. Only 9 recoveries. That's not bad because the league leader last year in fumble recoveries was 14. But at the same time, just all this, 7 touchdowns, 6 touchdowns, I think they had, everything, it just feels like they're going to regress.
I will say this, just to counter the...
Yeah.
Let's not make them the Jags just yet. Okay. They may not be the number 1 defense, but gun to your head, they should be a good... That's not normal for us to go into the season thinking Jacksonville's going to be that great and then being that 15th. Bad.
Yeah.
Right. It also didn't help that Jacksonville's offense was trash last year.
For sure.
So, and the Bears offense shouldn't be trash, maybe. I don't know.
No, they're pretty good.
But,
well, I know you...
Here's the thing. Neither one of us is going to have the Bears on our team.
No chance.
Because someone's going to take them.
Their ADP right now is like the 8th round.
Okay.
That's insane. That means you're drafting your defense before, assuming you're 3 wide receiver, 1 flex league, before all your offensive starters.
Right. Which is insane.
So even if it's 9th, 10th round...
Right.
That's still way too high for me. For a defense as good as they look.
Because people are like, they get 25, 30 points a week. And it's like, and the other defenses get 22 points a week.
Right, or it's just, they're not going to score 6 touchdowns again. Here's what I will say about the Bears, though.
Okay.
All right? Because I know you were looking at schedules.
Yeah, I got their schedule.
I'm looking at it, too. Through week 5.
Yep.
So week 1, Packers, opening game, not great, but it's at home at least.
At home at night.
I'm not too scared, right? New coach for Green Bay, whatever. Then Broncos, love it.
Yep.
Redskins, love it.
Yep.
They're both on the road, but whatever.
Yep.
Then Vikings at home.
At home again,
I can live with it.
Right.
It's at home.
At home.
Then Raiders on the road, can live with it.
Yep.
But then it gets tougher.
After their bye, but they'll be rested.
Right. Okay. Saints. It's in Chicago, but still. Chargers in Chicago, but still. Eagles on the road, you can live with it. Lions at home, yeah, that's decent. Rams, you don't like. That stretch is rough. Then it opens up a little bit again. We get the Giants, we get the Lions. But the fantasy playoffs, Cowboys, Packers, Chiefs,
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Yeah, it's not great. So what you're saying is, all right, if you draft the Bears, you're probably going to get off to a decent start with those first 5 games.
Should be.
You can wing it throughout this. There's some bad matchups, but everyone's going to have bad matchups at that point. You stream someone, whatever. But this team that some people out there are considering taking in a single-digit fantasy round,
Right.
that they're going to hold all season,
Right.
what they have to look forward to is Dallas, Green Bay, Kansas City.
Yeah, that's the dream.
So to use that pick to then, and again, we're way ahead of playoff weeks here, but if you're talking about the Bears in the 8th or 9th round, fast forwarding to December, being like, I need a new defense.
Right, and
like,
now you're streaming the Bills against whoever
like that kind of, I mean, that is
it knocks them down.
It's definitely a vote against reaching for them.
Exactly. That's what it's all about, is reaching. If everyone in your league is like me and doesn't draft a defense and the Bears are there in the 13th round, by all means take them.
Right.
12th round, take them. But it's just a lot. It's just a high opportunity.
Now the next team on the list is, I think, got a little more value for talking about rounds and playoffs and schedules and all that.
So Chargers. Now, again, we have them higher than everyone else. I think right now their consensus ranking is about 7th. We have them 2nd. They're going, on average, 50 spots below the Bears in early
about
mocks.
4 rounds.
So that's, right.
Where
So now we're
defenses
talking
should be.
value. Right.
So start at home against Indianapolis, not great.
No.
But then Detroit, away,
You can live with it.
whatever. At home against Houston, I can live with that.
Yeah.
At Miami, great.
Love it.
At home versus Denver, great.
Love it.
All right, so there's the same 5 weeks.
Right.
Right, and then it's Pittsburgh. Then you get right back to Tennessee, at Chicago, Green Bay. You got another Oakland in there. But then you get to their fantasy playoffs. And let's start it a week before the playoffs when you need to get in.
That's a make or break week.
You know, first of all, late bye, right? Then Denver the week before the playoffs. At Jacksonville, first week of the playoffs.
Nice.
Home versus Minnesota. Not great, but it's at home.
It's at home.
And then you get Oakland in the Super Bowl if you're lucky enough to make it that far.
So good enough. Not great. You're not looking at any of that being like, oh, that's awesome, but not bad.
But I think you're talking that first 5-week comp because the Bears do have Green Bay and the Chargers have Indy. I'll take like it's pretty similar. And then the Chargers.
So you give me plus 4 rounds plus that early season comp. It's Chargers all day. Is our strategy.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Right. And as far as them as a team, like I was saying before, just the healthy Joey Bosa, I think, makes such a difference. Now, to be fair, when he did come back healthy last year, maybe he wasn't 100% right away. They didn't explode, but they were much better. And I like their playmakers in their secondary too. Good team, obviously, Super Bowl aspirations. They're in a good spot. The Rams, they got a lot of really good playmakers. We obviously know about Aaron Donald up front, does the work of 2 men. The secondary has guys who just like make big plays. They'll give some up, but they make them too. They're a pretty solid all-around fantasy defense. I think you can feel comfortable with the Rams. You know that's going to be a good team. They're going to put teams in positions where other teams have to pass, take some chances, which you always like. And they're solid. But I still think they're being overdrafted. But I think most fantasy defenses are being overdrafted.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're pretty much the consensus number 2.
It is also a bit of a feel for the people in your draft.
Right.
And, you know, if someone really reaches for the Bears, the next couple are probably going to come off a little earlier.
Maybe. Yeah.
But if someone doesn't reach, if someone waits the 10th round for the Bears, we're talking, what, 16
17 rounds.
Roster spots. Standard. You know, maybe you can get the Chargers, probably not the Rams, but in 13?
Right.
You okay with 13 out of 16?
Because I think 12 is where you start to see the run in 12-team leagues. Round 12, right about there is where you start seeing the defense. There'll be like 3 taken before that, and then kind of a run starts.
Because I mean, kickers last round.
Absolutely.
Unless you're the last pick.
Okay.
Of the last round, maybe I take it second to last.
Got to get Justin Tucker.
Right? But so that pushes defense up to probably 3rd from last round, which is around 13. So I don't think going around 12, if you want to take a pick, is reaching.
Right. See, so what's funny with me is I sometimes Like we're going to talk about the defense. I think I told you who I'm going to target in my drafts. The problem is they're a defense that's already going to be targeted.
Yeah.
And so now do I reach to like round 12 and screw myself?
I think 12, 13, depending on where, like around 12, depending on where your league is, what you've done prior to that, like what guys you have. You know, I don't think guys like me and you, we can make up that
Commissioners
pick.
like us?
We can make up that pick.
We'll figure it out. All right, so now let's go to the second tier and look.
By the way, I just want to point out that people like won their leagues or did well last year drafting Le'Veon Bell in the first round.
It was, anything's possible.
So you can recover from anything.
Anything's possible. Anything.
And Kevin Garnett said it best.
Yeah, he did. Did he make that up, I wonder? Anyway, I'm looking at the second tier, and we kind of did a little cop-out in the second tier, where we just grouped like 12 defenses in the second tier.
Well, that's what tiers are for.
Well, yeah, a lot of people would tier it off sharper than that. But I honestly am like, I don't know how you want me, even someone who gets paid to do this.
They pay you for this?
Well, for tax purposes, I pay them, but it's complicated.
You get health care.
It's complicated. But the point is, I don't think there isn't, like I really, honestly, this isn't just me. You know, I'm lazy. But this isn't an example of me being
fine.
lazy.
You don't have to explain to everyone that like picking defenses is a crapshoot.
No, but I think I do because most tiers aren't going to be 12 teams deep.
It's fine, a third of the league.
Yeah, but it's just,
It's fine.
Our number 4 is the Patriots.
Right.
New England. You've heard of them. And our number
Super Bowl champs.
Defending Super Bowl champs.
Did we win it? Yeah, we did win it.
Yeah, you did win it last year. You guys were all out there opening day at Fenway too.
Sometimes I forget.
So many.
Which years with the Super Bowl.
And our number 16 defense, which by the way is like a lot of other people's number 3.
Do I need to scroll down? Who's 16?
Yeah, it's the consensus number 3 right now in Fantasy Pros, the Jaguars.
Okay.
Which we'll get into them a lot more later. But that's our tier. So just the fact that so many other sites have the Jaguars so much higher, maybe we're just screwed up, but tells you I don't really know how to tell the difference.
Well, you don't know who your counterpart is at another site that might be just as lazy, if not lazier.
Bizarro Matt, he's got like a mustache.
Who's even lazier than you?
God, there's no way a guy has a job.
You never. Well, they were like, hey, Jimmy, Jimmy, can you take care of the defenses?
His name would be Thew. He'd go Thew for Matthew. He'd
I was thinking it might just be Pat.
Might be Pat too. Could be a lot of ways. Or it'd be a female. You don't know. So we have a lot of teams in the second tier, and it's the usual suspects. The Patriots, the Steelers, the Chiefs, who were higher on than most
Well, it's a third
people.
of the league. So
it is.
And it's the same teams in the league every year.
Right.
So it is a lot of the usual suspects.
The Minnesota Vikings, the Denver Broncos, the Houston Texans, the Colts. We're a little higher on them than other places. We'll get to them. The Cowboys, who are a little higher on. The Browns. A lot of people like them as a breakout. The Saints. Disappointment last year. The Redskins, who were way higher on than other people. The Ravens and the Jaguars, who were lower on than others. So looking at that tier, who stands out to you as your favorite that you just in general?
Well, it stinks because you rank them. You know, they're the next team on the list.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with me being a Patriots fan.
Right.
But it is the Patriots, and it's for this reason. The AFC East, NFC East, we think those are probably the worst.
Offensive.
I mean, we went through all the teams, right?
Yeah.
We named the Bills, the Jets, and the Dolphins, and we named the Giants and the Redskins, right? Those divisions play each other this year.
Right.
So not only are you getting your intra-division games, but you're getting...
So 10 games, 9 that matter for fantasy purposes, the Patriots will be facing against those teams.
Right.
And the best team...
And that's the other thing too, right?
Philly or Dallas?
Yeah. I'd say Philly first, then Dallas. So the other thing is when... Like, let's say we were talking about the Jets defense, right?
Yeah.
Let's just say. The Jets don't get to play the Jets.
Right.
So the Patriots are outside of those teams.
Yeah.
Like, they get to play them all. Now, they give one up in Week 17.
Right.
I forget who they have. But, and they start to see, so they start against Pitt. All right. They have Pitt's number.
So this is an example of why I say, like, it's like you want us to stream in Week 1 if you've drafted the Patriots.
Right. So the thing
it's kind of weird, right?
So once you get through that, though, it's at Miami versus the Jets, at Buffalo, at Washington, versus the Giants, and at the Jets in a row.
Oh, I'm drafting the Pats 11th round now.
In a row.
You and me competing for the Pats.
Okay, so that's in a row. Just set it and forget it.
Yeah.
Pick up backup running backs, pick up Gronk, do all that other stuff because you don't need to carry a second D. Right?
Gosh, you are so lucky.
And then after that, actually, I stopped at the Jets. After the Jets, let's go home versus Cleveland. Okay, Cleveland's going to be a little feisty.
But you know what? It's at home.
And it's like Cleveland, right?
And maybe they've combusted already. Odell Beckham's throwing
Then
stuff.
at Baltimore, who we're not scared of.
Oh, not
You'll
at all.
start them against.
Not at all. Primetime game, too. Pats come to play in primetime.
That takes you to the bye.
Okay.
All right.
Rested.
Then let's fast forward.
Right.
Let's talk about.
Gronk has joined the team during the bye.
You've done such a good job. You
Thank
don't
you.
have a Week 14 game.
Oh, no.
So throw
I
out,
totally plan
or you
on
can stream,
first-round buys.
Right. So Kansas City that week, fine. But you know what? It's the end of the season. Only 6 teams are making your playoffs.
Right.
Not hard to fight for a date.
Oh, you're going to get one.
And you planned for that 3 weeks earlier, so you're
Sure
straight.
did.
After you get out of that,
Right.
we're on to Cincinnati.
Yeah, we've been on to them before. We know
We're
how
on to
that
Cincinnati,
story ends.
And then we close against Buffalo.
Woo! Sucks that Dolphins are week
Your
17.
Honor, I rest my case.
Yeah, it sucks the Dolphins are week 17, but still.
Yeah.
But still. Fantastic.
How's that for analysis?
I'm picking the Patriots
With
now.
by the way, I didn't even think of that joke until just then, the on to Cincinnati thing.
Yeah, that was
Great, pat myself on the back. I was nervous today, but
no need to be.
mid-season form.
Just guy wakes up,
Mid-season
gets out of bed. So
that's my case.
fantastic.
I like your team that you picked.
So I picked the Chiefs, and look,
Give it to me.
all right, last season, think of what's the general perception of the Chiefs defense at the end of last year. They suck,
They
right?
give up 1 million points.
Right. They're not
in
good.
Shootouts.
Guess what? They were number 7 fantasy defense last year.
What?
They led the league in sacks.
What?
Yeah. All right, you don't need to sell it too hard. They led the league in sacks. They had a bunch of takeaways. And they have playmakers. Now this offseason, they went through some major changes, right? They got rid of some key guys. They brought in some key guys. It was a lot of deck chair shuffling where it's like, oh, look at all those sacks they shipped out, Justin Houston and some of that. But it's like, oh, but they brought in Frank Clark. And the biggest thing they did, I think, was getting rid of the defensive coordinator. I think they got, Steve Spagnuolo, they got a better defensive coordinator. They're going to change the scheme. I think it's going to make them better overall. And ultimately, you lose D Ford and Justin Houston. That's a lot. They lost Stephen Hunter. He had 4 interceptions, but they bring Tyrann Matthews.
Some guys in.
I mean, Matthews just big play waiting to happen. Obviously, Frank Clark's awesome.
We haven't talked about any special teamers yet. You still got Ty Hill back there.
That's right. Still back for those, one special team touchdown we'll give them. Put it on the board, which is more than you can say for most teams that you can at least bank on. So they're really good and underrated. Like I thought they were going to be fairly highly thought of this year because, again, they finished last year. They're 12th right now on the Fantasy Pros. Like, if you look at where they're being ADP for defenses, they're the 12th off the board. So they might not even be drafted in your league. And this is another team where I just think because of their offense, it's always going to give them opportunities or put them in position where the other team's going to have to be throwing to keep up. That means sacks. They have one of the best pass rushes in the league, which I think they will still have even with some of the changes. So look at their early schedule. Jaguars, Raiders, both on the road. But you can more than live with those.
In today's NFL, you have to live with those.
There it is. Today's NFL.
The scoring. I mean,
that's right. Then week 3, their first home game, they get the Ravens. We've already talked about them. We're not scared of them. Then they get the Lions on the road. We're not scared of them. We're not seeing any great matchups yet, but we're not really getting any bad ones.
I'd start them those 4 weeks.
Right. Okay. Then we got a Colts, Texans back-to-back. Both at home. Maybe Colts I'm not feeling great about, but again, when you start factoring pass rush stuff, I'm fine against the Texans.
Yeah, Texans
especially at home.
Yeah.
All right. Then we get Broncos. We like that. Packers, Aaron Rodgers will be hurt by then. I think we can all
Still
agree.
recovering from that torn ACL.
We're good. Vikings, not great. Titans, fine. You're not scared. I don't like the old Chargers matchup, but that's fine. Because the Chargers, they play in week 17, so throw it out, the second one. Raiders.
It's a good throwout.
All right, week 14, Patriots, don't like it, on the road, but I planned ahead for that.
We'll
I'm
both probably have the bye.
Probably getting a bye.
Or we can just agree, because I'll have the Pats D.
Sure.
You'll have the Chiefs D. If we play each other in the first round,
throw them out.
which is highly unlikely.
Roll the dice.
Yeah, just throw them out and roll the dice.
All right, week 15, we love at home against the Broncos. That's a big one. Week 16 at the Bears, not great.
I would have already knocked you out by then.
Probably, I would have already lost by then. So, because of other factors. So there's not a lot of their schedule you don't look at and say, oh, so many great matchups, right? The Broncos ones are the ones that stand out. But at the same time, it's not a lot of, oh no, I can't play them against this team.
I mean, I see if you draft them, you don't have to stream for 4 weeks.
This to me is the closest thing to sort of an old school fantasy way of thinking of hey, I have a pretty good defense, I'll throw them out.
Right.
Pretty much every week.
Do you have, and I can answer this first while you think for a second, do you have a team that you like the first couple for your streaming theory that's lower on the list or just anywhere on the list that it's totally not a hold for you?
Oh.
Because mine's, I'll just jump in so you don't take mine because I don't have a second one, is the Cowboys, who I think
that's my favorite.
worth mentioning. Starting home versus Giants at Washington, home versus Miami.
Love them. Love the Cowboys.
That's one that I'm not necessarily sure you hold, but again, it's another.
So I think they're underrated. You look at them last year; they were a good, real defense, but they didn't do a lot of takeaways, get a lot of takeaways, fantasy stuff. I mean, it's not going to take much for that to turn and for them to be a top 10 fantasy
And again,
defense.
it's another team in one of the East divisions.
Exactly.
That's on the better offensive end, not having to play itself, but gets to play all the other ones.
So I'm a fan of that. The other one, I like the Bills. They start with at the other two New York teams.
Don't talk too much about the Bills. I'll talk about them later.
But I'm saying I like them. I like the Ravens. Their start, I believe, was it Miami, Arizona?
Yep, at Miami, home versus Arizona.
Yeah. So I like them for 2 weeks. They also pretty good down the stretch too. So those are a couple others where and then there's a couple that are like just week one, right? Like the Lions in Arizona. They can get you by for week one. I think the Jets and Bills play each other in week one.
Yeah.
I think you can use both of them.
I have Philly home versus
Washington week one. So there's some other ones if you're just that 1 week, that's all you care about. Because like another one, like San Francisco plays Tampa in week one, and then Cincinnati in week two. Both on the road I don't like, especially for a West Coast team, but also like I just don't think they're very good.
Right.
So I probably wouldn't, as much as I stream, I don't think you need to go that far.
Maybe no AJ Green in Cincinnati.
Right, but I don't think you need to dumpster dive that much.
I think if you're lazy, if you do no research, grab one of the teams from the East divisions.
Yeah, probably.
And you probably have half your season figured out.
Because like we're much lower on the Eagles than everyone else, but that is a good reason to like them. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so now let's in that second tier.
Okay.
The teams we like the least.
Okay. I'm jumping on the Texans.
Okay.
I have their first 7 games.
Yeah.
Right. This is a weird one, but in the first 7 games, I think you've got one playable where you're comfortable matchup there. Maybe 2. So they start at New Orleans. Bad.
That's like as bad as it gets.
So then home, you can play them week 2 at home against Jacksonville. Completely fine with that.
Yeah, you're fine.
But then it's at Chargers, home against Carolina.
I mean, you can play them.
I'm not excited about it.
Yeah.
And then let's see, home versus Atlanta, at Kansas City, at Indy. I think those are all terrible matchups.
Pretty much. Indy, maybe you play them, but you don't feel good.
You've got the J.J. Watt factor.
Oh, yeah.
How many games did he miss the last couple of years?
Well, he played all last year, and they finished as the number 3 fantasy defense.
Right, and before
that, I think he played like eight games in the 2 seasons before that combined.
And then the other factor, Clowney's holding out right now.
Yep.
That could drastically change a month from now. We don't know, but right now, he's not on that team defense.
They lost Matthew. They lost Kareem Jackson.
Now here's the only sticking point. But I'd argue you can probably get him at waivers later in the year. They actually have. It's funny. Some of these teams that are either good fantasy defenses or have a good beginning start of the season have bad playoffs, and these guys are the opposite.
Theirs.
Theirs is let's see, home versus Denver, at Tennessee, at Tampa Bay.
Bucks. I like that. But they're going to be on the waiver wire.
But I don't know how 100%. You get these first 7 weeks.
You don't get through it.
It's brutal.
And it's stupid. And the other thing, too, they were tied to the league with 14 fumble recoveries last year. That's going to regret. It just always does when a team's that high in fumble recoveries. There's a lot of reasons. There's reasons to like them, mainly J.J. Watt and some of that, but there's way more reasons
They
not
lost
to.
Kareem Jackson, too.
Yeah.
I don't know if you mentioned that.
Yeah, I did. I was all over.
I was reading my notes.
Added to Sean Gibson, which could help, but still, yeah. Overall, I think they're weaker. Hate that early schedule. Someone's going to draft them just looking at rankings and be like, cool, I got a again, this is a team you draft. It makes you feel good when you see their name. Your draft grade will be decent because they're fairly highly ranked, and it's fool's gold.
And even that Tampa game, like the NFC South, all decent. I mean, Tampa can put up points.
Yeah, but they
have in the past. They're random.
Awful.
They're random.
I'd
But just looking at their divisions, they got to go
streaming against Tampa.
They got to go AFC West, and then NFC South.
Right. Not great. So the team that my least favorite is the Jaguars, which you can figure out from the ranking. I do think maybe last year was a bit of an aberration. They'll be better. They obviously have talent. They're not a bad defense, but that team that they were 2 years ago, they're not that team anymore.
They're not walking through that door.
They really aren't. And they lost their leading, Telvin Smith's not playing this year. So you still like the secondary, but if you have lockdown corners, that can only do so much in terms of fantasy points. Like maybe it leads to more punts and lower scores, but you don't that doesn't necessarily result in INTs,
right?
And or even sacks sometimes.
Playing the same 2 divisions as Houston,
right? And then also, you gotta have Josh Allen, right? That's great. He seems like he'll be a good pass rusher to add him, and they still have Calais Campbell. They're not bad by any means, but like I said, when I see them going 3rd among fantasy defenses, it just doesn't make. They didn't add enough other than a rookie. And they lost, in my opinion, more than they added. And they weren't good last year. They don't have a great schedule. I don't get it.
Yeah, they don't get to play themselves, right? They got to look up at Indy and Houston in their division.
And look, for all these positions, we do a do not draft player. It's the Texans and Jaguars. Like, we're going to combine the two into the least favorite in the do not draft. That's why I just don't. And for the Jaguars, it's especially. Do not draft where they're going. It just doesn't make any sense to me. It's such a wasted pick. And week 1 is Kansas City.
Right.
It's like week 1 already. You're like, oh, I need another defense.
Right.
Yeah, just not smart. And then week 2 is Houston, right?
Yeah.
Which.
Not great.
Yeah, you can play him, I guess, again, because Houston has a
that's on the road, but that's on the road. That's on the fast turf.
You're not feeling great.
It's on the fast turf.
Well, it might be good for the fast pass rushers. There's a lot of things to take into account.
I'm so lazy, though.
But Deshaun Watson's faster than the pass
totally
rusher.
faster, yeah.
God, he's fast. So just a lot of things to think about. All right. Well, because our rankings don't necessarily match up with other sites, going with the favorite sleeper and deep sleeper, we're sort of, I'm looking more at ADP. You might have been looking a little more at our rankings. That's fine. Who do you like? Let me start it because we already talked about one. I was going to talk about 2, and one was the Cowboys, but we already kind of talked about why we like them.
Yep, go for it.
And I just think they're a good real life defense, and sometimes it does. That was always Pittsburgh's thing, good real life, and it never or rarely totally translated.
But you felt safe.
Right. It was like, well, yeah, they get 3 and outs and keep a score low, but where are those turnovers? Right. But it doesn't. It can translate, like just a few more lucky bounces, and all of a sudden, oh yeah, they were a real fantasy defense. So that's why I like the Cowboys. The other one I really like is the Colts. So last year they were 11th in DST fantasy points. The schedule facing the South teams, maybe that holds them back a little bit. But they had 26 takeaways last year, and like I said, 11th. And they didn't score a touchdown. They're probably going to get 1 or 2 this year. I can't predict 4 or 5 or anything like that. 38 sacks was decent, middle of the road. Well, now you add Justin Houston. They drafted a ton of rookies that they added.
You can only really draft rookies, though.
You're right. On defense.
Got it.
Rookie. Yeah, they didn't draft a 5th-year All-Pro.
They drafted some solid vets.
They drafted talented rookies on defense.
Got it.
So I think when you put it all together, good team, playing indoors, that's the kind of team I could see really breaking out, but I do wish they had.
You like good team playing indoors?
Yeah.
Why do you like good team playing indoors for defense?
Because it's loud. It's louder, and they're just pinning their ears
back.
back.
I like elements.
Well, I like that too.
Yeah.
but it's like the Saints, right?
You like pinning the ears back.
Yeah, I love pinning the ears back. And the quarterback can't audible. He's doing the thing where he's hitting the top of his head, and the team can't hear him.
Yeah.
And boom,
chaos in
our
there.
pass rushers just fire off the ball.
Man. Does anyone pin their ears back like in any sport, in any profession, in anything?
I went to take a dump, pinned my ears back, handled business. So anyway, I wish the schedule was better. But
we are already in midseason form.
Yeah, really kind of are. But anyway, so those are the 2 sleepers. I think that both those teams are underrated, to put it that way. Who do you like?
Sure. I like the Ravens. We touched on them for a second before. Schedule play a bit.
Now, I'm sorry to interrupt you. They're a sleeper for where we have them ranked.
Sure.
Overall, they're 4th.
Yeah.
So they're not.
That's another one. Historically, people are always just, Ravens.
Right,
big.
and I think that's part
Got
of
Ed
it.
Reed back there, Ray Lewis.
So we're being a little. This is kind of based on our own rankings, which could be wrong.
But we pretend we don't see other people's rankings, right? We're the only site anyone's going to.
Yeah, that's. Yeah.
Anyway, like the Ravens for basically their season start and their season finish, right?
Yeah.
So you start out at Miami, at home versus Arizona. Can't do much better than that, at least at this point in time.
That's beautiful.
Can't do much better than that. End the season at Buffalo, which could be a little dicey.
No, it isn't.
Home versus the Jets, that's a good one. And then at Cleveland,
that's tough.
Not great. Yeah, it's not great.
But it's a rivalry game.
But just some other general factors is sign Earl Thomas.
Right.
So he takes that Ed Reed position, so don't even worry about not realizing Ed Reed's on the team anymore.
He's been on the team forever. He's already in the Hall of Fame.
I think people draft the Ravens because they still think Ed Reed's back there.
You could have said that he takes the Eric Weddle position, but no, you went with the guy who's been retired for 7 years. No,
And
the
that's
biggest
just-
thing, they lost C.J. Mosley and they lost Terrell Suggs.
Yeah.
These are like franchise stalwarts.
Yeah, well, Suggs is old. But what I like
But
about
he was the heart and soul.
It's true. What I like about
Him and
them,
Ray
though-
Lewis,
What I
'cause
like about them,
people
though,
still
and
think Ray Lewis
It
is
might
on
not
the team.
translate into tons of sacks and picks and touchdowns, but I think they're going to have ridiculous amounts of time possession this year. They want to run the ball like 40 to 50 times.
Take the over.
I just think that their defense isn't going to be on the field a ton. So I don't necessarily think you're going to be susceptible to like, big scores against them. I think I think they're just safe and they're just going to limit any horrific defensive matchups because in theory, they're going to hold the ball a lot.
Yeah, I just think that they're way overrated, but that doesn't like.
It's from the Ed Reed years, man.
Well, but it is. And,
It is.
But even so, last year they finished 5th, right? And it's like, oh great, and they added Earl Thomas. That guy's awesome. Coming back from serious injury, who knows? But I still think he's really good. But those guys I mentioned they lost are big. That's a big deal.
Yeah, big deal.
And you get Jalen Ferguson, rookie. That's great. They're still going to be good. They just seem like they're well coached. They always have a solid scheme. It is kind of like, well, Baltimore finds a way. It's kind of like Pittsburgh. They seem to find a way to be good defensively. But I don't know. I think they're overrated, but at the same time, I do love them early season. And they're a team, if I don't get the Patriots, who now I'm very much targeting.
But I know you're not taking them until what round again?
I mean, God, I've set a precedent for myself.
You sure have.
13th. I can't. It's tough for me to go
I'm
beyond
grabbing
that.
them in the 12th. And if that doesn't happen, we'll have an emergency podcast, and I will completely rip on you for not following your own advice.
Yep. I did it to myself.
That's the problem with your opinions being public.
It's a problem being so damn cocky and smug and confident about my opinion. So anyway, yeah, they're good. So deeper sleepers then.
Yep.
Let's go a little deeper. And I'm going to start with mine because
Sure.
I don't understand why this team is so low in consensus rankings, and that's the Washington Redskins. They're the 24th defense in consensus ADP right now. And if you look at their rankings across the board, that's about where they're ranked.
Don't you think there's a segment of people or a part of the thought with defenses, though, they look at just how bad the team is in general?
I guess
They're like,
so.
well, they can't have a good defense.
Right. So last year they finished 10th. 46 sacks, which is very good. 26 takeaways, very solid. They lost some key players, Zach Brown, HaHa Clinton-Dix, DJ Swearinger, but you add Montez Sweat, John Bostic, Landon Collins. I mean, that's a huge add. I think that they're similar. Like, you could argue they're ultimately better. The grand scheme of things, they still, Kerrigan, they have good players there. Josh Norman is still okay. He makes big plays. We talk about the East.
They don't get to play
matchups.
themselves, but they still get the AFC East.
Right, they get the Giants.
Still get the Giants.
And some things like that. I don't understand basically why they're just being treated as one of the worst defenses in the league. I think they're
it's
much better than that.
The lazy analysis is they're just not a good football team.
I think
their
it is.
defense is clearly going to get.
So now that is a worry too, right?
It matters.
Because if you're going 3 and out and the defense has to come right back on the field and the other team's starting their possessions from the 40-yard
field
line.
position, you've got most likely you're going to have a rookie quarterback,
give up
potentially
more
throwing
points.
picks.
So those things matter.
they matter.
It definitely matters, but I still think
But it doesn't mean you can't have a good defense.
the talent on the defense is such that I think they'll get sacks, they'll get decent takeaways, and maybe at the end, the points they allow, it all sort of evens. Because it's like the Browns last year. They were second in the league in takeaways, but they gave up a ton of points, and they weren't ever great fantasy defense. Like, they'd have good weeks, bad, and it would kind of all even out in the end. Maybe that's Washington this year. I don't know, but I think they're a little better because they have a better pass
But, we
rush.
talked about this a little before we started, too, in that today's NFL, and I say that jokingly.
Not yesterday.
I say that jokingly, but I say it with
Right.
a little bit of seriousness in that there aren't many teams, if you go by Yahoo default scoring,
Right.
the points against, they don't really come into play.
Yeah.
Because
Everyone scores at least 14
everyone
points.
scores at least 14 points. Yeah, Washington or some of these other bad teams
Miami.
might give up 21 a game because they just don't have the ball, whatever. But that might only be a 2-point difference from someone with a good D. So it comes down to turnovers, sacks, takeaways.
It's almost like a team.
As long as you're not giving up 35.
We talk about like defensive touchdowns being fluky. It almost feels like holding a team under 7 points is fluky.
Yeah.
Like, you can see, because
It's really easy to score.
You think, okay, who's the worst offense in the NFL? I'd say Miami. Going into the year, just outlook-wise,
Sure.
Miami, maybe Washington, whoever you say it is. They still are going to get 7 points.
They're not going to be shut out every game. I mean, look at the rules favor, the rules favor receivers, they favor
Right.
quarterbacks. Like, it's hard to hold a team under 10.
Yeah. Because even if we say the Bears are the best defense, Miami's the worst offense, they're playing in Chicago, you still don't really say, oh, the Bears will shut them out. You're like, okay,
but that's going to be the one.
And that's what I'm saying. So it's fluky if it happens and you get 10 points.
Right.
And everyone else is like, well, I got 2 or whatever it is if the team gives up 14.
Right. And then you look at the spread in the points, not NFL points in fantasy points.
Right.
And it's like the difference between giving up 13 and 17 or 13 and 20 is only a couple points.
Yeah, it's like it's 4 or whatever it is.
So it's it's a couple sacks, turnover, whatever.
It matters. But all right, who do you like deep sleep?
Deep sleepers, I like the Bills.
Buffalo.
Again, sticking with that East Division flavor. Great season start at Jets, at Giants.
The little New York tour,
right?
The road.
Home versus Cincy. Then home versus New England, not good. At Tennessee, bye. Then I'll go one more after the bye. Home versus Miami. Right. In general, they missed the Jets game. The Jets is their Week 17, so they get them once. Miami twice. Giants, Redskins, Cincinnati, Tennessee, and Denver, all on their schedule. That's 8 out of their 16 games you might play in a fantasy season.
Right.
That's pretty good.
Pretty good. And I drafted Ed Oliver first round. He should help the pass rush. They got some playmakers.
Let's talk about a return guy. They signed Andre Roberts, who could help the return game. A couple other stats. Let's see if I can read my writing here. They actually had the second fewest yards allowed last year.
Right.
In general. They had the 7th most interceptions, 2nd most forced fumbles. So not talking about recoveries, forced fumbles. You mentioned they signed Oliver. A couple of drafted that rookie.
Right.
A couple of Sean McDermott stats. First 2 years.
Love Sean McDermott stats.
First 2 years in Buffalo, they were top 10. They were top 10 in turnovers.
Right.
And then his last 4 as defensive coordinator in Carolina, they were top 10 in turnovers created.
So I shouldn't have picked him first round in the first coach fired pool? Because he was my 3rd overall pick.
There's a lot to like about Buffalo. And if I had to choose one of the teams from the AFC, like out of those 3 bad ones, that could be a little feisty on offense, is going to be Buffalo.
All right, and that's why your bold prediction, let's just roll right into it,
is everything I just said about Buffalo. They will be a top. I didn't know how high to go. You tell me if this is too weak. I'm going to say top. I said top 12 defense because that's a starting defense.
Right.
In a
You should have said
league.
10.
Should I said 10? I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to make the change.
It's that easy to just roll it over into 12 to 10?
Well, we'll never talk about it again, so there it is.
Not until Mike fires.
Book it.
That suspended game gets finished.
Happy to do it.
All right. Bills top 10 fantasy defense. Bold. I don't like their talent.
Bolder than, well, it might not be bolder than yours. I don't know.
Yeah, mine's pretty lame. Just because I don't think defenses
You're
are
playing
worth...
the not game instead of you're saying that isn't going to happen.
Right, which is pretty easy to do.
Is going to happen.
I like when people are like, I bet they're not even going to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Like 31
You'll be
games.
right 31 out of 32 games.
Right. All right, my bold prediction, Bears, they're not a top 5 defense at the end of the year. I should have said 10 too.
What a snore fest that bold prediction was.
Look, I think every single person was like, yeah, Bears are the number 1. So if everyone's saying they're number 1,
cool.
So me saying
that doesn't help anyone here. All that does is help avoid people taking them too high.
Yeah. Well, that's worthwhile. If people take,
if I can get one person,
if people take one thing from this podcast, it's don't overdraft the Bears.
Is this an elaborate ruse so that you can get the Bears
in the 11th round? Just lie to everyone. Remember, we had someone who did that.
Patriots.
We had a former employee who would write
Go ahead, but I
articles at this company that he later more or less admitted, yeah, I didn't really mean that stuff. I was trying to throw you guys off the set.
I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yes.
And I could also tell you that no one from our fantasy league was probably reading his article.
I mean, I read them because I had to edit them. But I wasn't like, I'm going to change my strategy now.
Well, I had one better. This is years and years and years ago.
Yeah.
It was when Deion Sanders
primetime
signed with the Redskins.
God, this is years ago.
Years ago, early 2000s.
Sure.
And we were doing an in-office draft. We were all at our
this wasn't our office.
No,
I didn't. Yeah.
This is when I worked in finance.
Right.
These people had no idea what they were doing.
And I was still partying in college.
So we were drafting at our desks, but we were doing our work in between, and not everyone sat near each other.
Sure, that's
and it was first pick.
what they all say.
First pick, and I forget the guy's name, but First pick, we're like, hey man, you gonna make your pick? Comes over, could have typed it, could have sent it in a message. Came over.
You guys using Yahoo or AIM?
Yeah, I don't know what we were using.
Probably
back
AIM,
then.
right?
Came over into a group, and maybe there were about 6 or 7 of us that sat, kind of together that were in the league. He comes over, points at us, and goes, Redskins D. And then walked away. And then walked away.
Up.
And we were like, and I remember this would have been when like Falk and Edgerrin.
Sean Alexander, maybe?
It was down Falk.
LT?
Falk and Edge were the top
Maybe,
2 picks in the draft.
Maybe a
and it
little
was like
before
if you had the 3rd pick, you were disappointed.
Right.
You had to make a decision, whatever. And I want to say I had the 3rd pick.
Right.
And this dude comes over, points the finger, Redskins D.
A PowerPoint.
And he's like, they get like 30 points a game. It's like, yeah, my defense is going to get 27 a game. Like, doesn't matter.
What scoring system are you playing where defenses routinely get 27 points a game?
That wasn't today's NFL.
Okay. I don't think that was ever anyone's NFL where defenses got that many
had
points.
yards against.
All right,
points
you were doing
against.
weird stuff. Then.
Early 2000s? I mean, there was.
Oh, this is Wild West. Anything went in fantasy leagues then.
Listen, I backed in Edgerrin James because of that.
That's
all right?
amazing. Especially because he pointed.
He pointed. I wish I could remember the kid's name. Little small dude came over confident as hell. Like, confident as hell.
That's one.
Redskins D. And we're like, probably could have got him in the 2nd.
Yeah. Or 10th. Bold, though.
So no one's ever going to take a defense higher than that.
No, they're not. They really aren't. It's tough to do. Well, that's a good way to end this. Don't be like that guy. I think we all learned that lesson. So we knocked it out the park. We covered everything.
I want to say we over-covered everything.
Actually, we didn't cover a lot. I mean, there's a lot of teams we didn't talk about, really.
Yeah, but we talked about every game on the teams we did talk about.
That's
schedule.
true. We went a little overboard.
Which, how you keep up with that in a podcast, I have no idea.
Which is so meaningless to do in July.
Picture people writing down, okay, what did he say? Miami
You said week 7? They play who?
You can't find that on the
But
internet.
I just like week, like the first game of the season, it's like, oh, Deshaun Watson got hurt. Houston's an awesome matchup now, or whatever it is.
Podcast means nothing. But I like to think that we entertained some people today.
Well, we entertained ourselves, and that's half the battle. So,
And probably my mom.
sure. Yeah, that was big too. Another team I like the Vikings. How about that for additional analysis?
Great.
All right.
Talk about their schedule.
Nope. So, we're doing these for every position, so look for that. Look for more podcasts. Eric's only on running back one.
Big one tomorrow.
So yeah, we'll record that tomorrow, and that'll get real silly. But look for the other podcasts, and obviously for anything else you could possibly need for your draft. sportingnews.com/fantasy.
Just send Matt an email, and he will get back to you.
Just write me a letter. Here's my address, and I will handwrite you notes in return. But we have rankings, we have sleepers, we have draft strategies and tiers for every position. We have auction values. We have a mock draft simulator.
We got podcasts.
We got podcasts, of course. We got team names.
Team names.
Ooh, do we have team names?
No pun intended.
No pun intended. That's right.
That's mine.
Killing it. And someone actually sent me a nice tweet yesterday that was like, well, they didn't send it to me. They did like they were tweeting and tagged me on it. It was very nice. They said, just read at M. Letuski's fantasy football team names, and I called dibs on I got 99 problems, but Fitz ain't one. But Fitz ain't one.
But you also like the, what was the,
Get Mitch or die trying for Mitch Trubisky. Yeah. You can do get Fitz or die trying too. It still works.
You could switch Mitch in for the Fitz one.
Yeah, for all of them, for sure. So anyway, also best ball. Auction tips.
How's your dynasty coverage?
We got dynasty. We do have
dynasty.
One. We got dynasty tips up there.
Pretty hardcore.
We got
dynasty
tips.
League.
We got tips. I know you're a commissioner. We should write it. You should do a from the desk of the commissioner every week, every Monday.
Listen, I got a lot of ideas how we should change.
I want it to be like the on the in-flight magazines up front. It's always like happy flying, Jerry. They always just do a first name, like that's supposed to make me feel better about being on a Lufthansa flight. I guess he wouldn't be Jerry. He'd be like Hans or something. But anyway, we got it all. sportingnews.com/fantasy. Look for it. Just look for our cheat sheet. That has the links to absolutely everything. I don't know if people still bookmark things anymore, but if you're in the business of bookmarking stuff, check it back. That's the one thing you can do that with. So that covers defense preview. For Eric Ferreira, I am Matt Letuski. Thanks for listening, and until next time.